Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Rounding Third, brought to you by Podbean.com. You can check us out online at roundingthird.podbean.com. Email us over at roundingthirdbase@gmail.com.
You can also find us on Facebook. Just search Rounding Third and like our page. We also have a group called Rounding Third Base as well, so feel free to like that.
Got a lot of interesting things to talk about on today's show, and Zach, you want to tell us what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, there was a big fight the other night between Zach Greinke and Carlos Quentin. We're going to, touch on that a little bit. We're also going to discuss the top teams in baseball through the first 2 weeks of the season and much, much more.
That's right, and first we're going to start off with a fight that happened between two players of the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Diego Padres. And Zach, you want to give us more information about that?
Yeah, basically it was a game the other night. Zach Greinke and Carlos Quentin, they've got a history between the two of them. Back when Greinke pitched for the Kansas City Royals and Carlos Quentin played outfield for the Chicago White Sox, Greinke hit him with a pitch, I believe, on at least two occasions back in those days. And it happened again the other night. Greinke, of course, playing for the Dodgers now, while Carlos Quentin is on the Padres. And Carlos, he remembers the history between the two of them, and he was not too happy with being hit in the wrist. So he basically just charged the mound. Greinke lowered his shoulder to lessen the blow from Quentin, and in the process, a huge fight ensued. Both benches cleared, the bullpens ran in, and in the process, Greinke broke the collarbone on his throwing shoulder. Now he is on the disabled list, which, of course, is not good news for me, as he was one of the aces of my fantasy baseball team. But what can you do?
Wow. And an interesting stat here is apparently he's been hit 116 times in his career. He's the seventh most among active players, so not the most lucky guy, I guess you could say,
Yeah, and I mean, the way he was charging Greinke, you'd think about 17 of those times were from Greinke himself. I mean, he was just livid, got blunked, turned to Greinke. Greinke threw down the glove, and, from there it was all history. Now Greinke's hurt. The Dodgers' rotation is in flux a little bit. And this, of course, coming out a few days after they, traded Aaron Harang, thinking that their starting pitching was pretty much set. So they're trying to get all the pieces together and stay on track until Greinke can come back. So, a little dispute between two players here, some history that boiled over, and now you see how it affects the team.
Yeah, and obviously it wasn't intentionally done. Accidents do happen on the field, but it's kind of interesting to see what happens they have a history of like this between them. You could see a fight just ensues automatically, and they just go right after each other. So, they'll get over it at some point.
Yeah, one can only hope. I mean, sometimes with these baseball players, they like to keep these things in mind for next time, and even the smallest thing will set them off. I know if Greinke, pitches to Quentin again the next time these two teams meet, when they're both, back in the lineup, Quentin was obviously suspended for 8 games. But once these two guys are playing against each other once again, if Greinke so much as pitches, inside, Quentin might have it in the back of his mind that he's trying to, come in on him again, and who knows what'll happen.
On Monday, tragedy struck the Boston Marathon, where officials are now calling a terrorist attack. Right near the finish line, a bomb exploded, and then about 10 seconds later, another bomb exploded, basically turning into mass chaos at the marathon. And as a result of that, on Tuesday night, the New York Yankees organization paid tribute to all the victims of the explosions there by playing Neil Diamond's Sweet Caroline at the end of the third inning during their 4-2 win over the Arizona Diamondbacks, just going along with the Fenway Park sing-along that happens at every one of their games. It's been happening for the last 15 years at Fenway Park. It's been a staple of Fenway Park, and usually they play it at the bottom of the 8th inning for the fans there at the team, and that was just a very nice tribute put forward by the New York Yankees organization, and I give them a lot more respect than I used to for doing something along the lines of that, just showing their respect and putting aside their differences of being that bitter rival that they always used to be. They put that aside for that night, and everybody was a Boston fan for that night.
Yeah, it was definitely good to see. The Yankees showed that they are indeed a classy organization by putting aside their bitter rivalry with the Boston Red Sox to show that there is a lot more than baseball in life. And while we're discussing tributes, as we all know, this past Tuesday was April 15th, otherwise known as Jackie Robinson Day in the major leagues. The day that every player wears number 42 out of respect for Jackie Roosevelt Robinson, who was the first African-American player to break into the major leagues, as we all know by now. So it's always good to see, the players all band together and unite in a common good, such as paying homage to the legacy that Jackie Robinson left behind.
And you actually saw this movie just today, right, Zach?
Yeah, I paid my own special tribute to Jackie Robinson by seeing the movie 42 today. I found it very enlightening. For the most part, I already knew most of what had occurred, but it was good to see kind of a first-hand account of what exactly Jackie Robinson went through as he was breaking into the majors and how he dealt with it on a personal level.
Yeah, and Zach, I haven't seen it myself personally yet, but I will be making my way out to the theaters, and I advise everybody to do the same.
And our last story tonight, through the first 2 weeks of the season, we've got some pretty impressive records thus far. I'm kind of surprised to see that the Colorado Rockies have cracked the top 5 in a list that we're going to be counting down of the top 5 teams right now in all of the major leagues. Coming in at number 1 is the 12-2 Atlanta Braves. Now the Braves in their last 10 games are 9-1. They actually just lost earlier today, 1-0 against the Kansas City Royals, but they are impressive. They're 6-0 on the road, 6-2 at home, with a point differential of plus 41. So they've outscored their opponent by 41 points, and they are owing that in large part to the strong performance thus far of Justin Upton, who was acquired in a trade in the offseason with the Arizona Diamondbacks. He has 8 home runs on the season already with 12 RBIs, and he is batting .333.
Next, we have the Oakland A's, 12-4, first in the AL West, first overall in runs, 9th overall batting average, and 5th on-base percentage, with the slugging percentage 4th overall with .466.
And coming in third are those Colorado Rockies that I mentioned previously. Kind of surprised to see that they're this high on the list with a 10-4 record. But they're 5-0 at home so far, and they are paced offensively by Carlos Gonzalez, of course, their stud out in left field. He's got 4 home runs, 8 RBIs. He's walked 9 times, so he gets on base quite a bit, and he is batting a hefty .380. It's going to be interesting to see how Colorado fares moving forward. And I know we mentioned on an early episode of Rounding Third that they do not have the best starting rotation in the major leagues. So the performance of their starters going forward is really going to dictate how well their season goes from here on out.
And coming in 4th here are my team, the Boston Red Sox, 9-4 overall, first in the AL East, 11th overall runs, 19th overall with batting average for .247, 12th overall on-base percentage, and their slugging percentage 14th overall for .403. Young team for the Red Sox, going through a couple of struggles there, but doing pretty well so far, as you can see during the beginning of the season here. It's only 2 weeks in, so plenty of season for them to play. One injury that I see hitting the Red Sox organization is David Ortiz. He just went on yesterday to the DL. He'll be on there for 15 days, so we'll see what happens with him. But as of lately, David Ortiz hasn't really been the premier player on the Red Sox to basically a threat to any of the other teams. So I think the career of David Ortiz is slowly dwindling for the Red Sox.
And rounding out the top 5, we've got those Texas Rangers who seem to be in the mix every year. They're currently 9-5 with a 4-2 record at home. They're plus 12 in the point differential, and they are 6-4 in their last 10 games. Yu Darvish and the rest of the pitching staff has stayed strong. They've lost players coming into this season, Josh Hamilton, for example, but other players have really come in and picked up the slack, and they are still, right in the thick of things as of right now.
Okay, that's going to do it for us here on Rounding Third, brought to you by Podbean.com. You can catch us at roundingthird.podbean.com. You can go over to our
YouTube page. We've got a new YouTube page set up. You can catch us there at Rounding Third Base 1. That's Rounding Third Base and the number 1. We've got all of our episodes archived on there. You can also email us at roundingthirdbase@gmail.com and like our Facebook page, Rounding Third.
We want to thank you for listening to this episode of Rounding Third Base. I am Chris Wilson.
And I am Zach Delyden.
And here we are, signing off.